All right, cool. But yeah, I'm about to start over, so I don't know what happened with Zoom. I'm sick of Zoom. I'm gonna probably move over somewhere else. But yeah, in summary, what I had covered earlier was I'm going to launch the first cohort slash workshop. I'm hoping to do that like 2 weeks from now. I'm probably gonna start doing like announcements for that probably tomorrow or like later early in the week next week. And from there, I'm pretty much just gonna cover everything in terms of solidified points, structure, alignment, and everything that kind of ties in between that. So like POIs and different levels of structure, internal, external, just everything in relation to market structure, solidified points, etc. I won't go into like core models and stuff like that. That's probably like its own workshop. But I'm gonna figure out all the details and send that over in the Discord. 2, it is that Cove is coming out, I think, in like 3 days. So I'm also gonna make an announcement for that, and I'm looking forward to see what you guys think of the app and if it can actually be of benefit to you guys as like a trader, as an individual. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started on this quickly again. So last week talked about AU, where we were looking at a potential swing because from a daily time frame, we have sort of the very major high. We're also pretty overextended, right? And we're potentially still within a sweep setup, right? We're still within the perimeter. And because we're still within the perimeter, we're sweeping a daily high. That means that the internal, I'm probably not too keen on wanting to continue bullish, right? Unless I get some type of liquidity. And based on the scale, I would have needed my TP to be hit. And then now it's like next week, it's like if this is going to continue up, then I want to see some type of transition, right, to the upside to then justify continuing higher, right? But talking about this trade quickly, right? This is the first swing trade that I've had in a while. And like I was telling you guys before, I was pretty lucky in this situation. Why? Because my entry was relatively aggressive, like I said here. I really should technically be looking for a full break because then it would be relative equal highs, which is also validating the POI here, which is also then validating the potential unwillingness to continue higher, right? Validating this POI, and it's also unwillingness to continue higher, and it's also aligning with the equal high sweep. Although at the same time, the only thing holding me back is the fact that we didn't break any major lows. So there's a lot going against me in this situation, and because there's a lot going against me in the situation, please mute your mics, guys. Because there's a lot going against me, this is technically still very aggressive. And because this is still very aggressive, that's why you still see moves like this, right? Like this. So this is an effect of seeing an internal transition to be bullish. We failed to break a low again. And then we also haven't broken any kind of structure. So technically we are bullish. So because we have an internal transition to the upside, it makes sense for this to pursue this previous high. But it's only because then that led to fail and then obviously completely broke after that. Because the failed scenario occurred here, right? This now shows this here, right? This internal LG now shows that as unwillingness. So because that's now unwillingness, and we're starting to see some momentum come into play, right? This is another potential high or potential aggressive low risk sell. I would say medium to low risk. Why? Because there's a transition and it's aligning with the POI and it's aligning with this internal transition. But more than anything, there is some momentum coming into play. So that's probably an engulfing on some type of time frame. And this is probably still a bit aggressive, but more importantly, this move led to the break here. And this is now the first time that we're breaking any important low. So technically, this is very aggressive if we're now comparing it to where price is here. Whereas this could potentially be a much better scenario where it's a buy to sell. Now, the problem is there wasn't really an internal transition. So it's a give or take situation where am I going to be aggressive, but the entry is much more justified? Or am I going to wait for the bias to fully present itself right? And then take a potential POI, but be a little bit more aggressive with the execution itself. So it's give or take, right? And although I do consider this to be lucky, it is still a very good trade, but I don't think it's good for you guys from an educational POV, right, to try to take positions like this because I'm technically picking a high, and you guys know that I'm always getting on y'all about picking highs and stuff. But the conviction came with the alignment, which was the daily high sweep, overextension on the daily, equal highs being swept, right? Relative equal highs being swept, and then the engulfing here that we talked about last week. So that was the conviction for this scenario, right? And that's why I'm taking partials along the way too, because I have to consider that because we didn't break a low, that this is going to continue higher. So if I'm taking partials and I'm going to break even, right, then I'm accounting for the fact that this could reverse on me because we are still not fully bearish. Sorry, right? Is this making sense, guys? Do you guys see how there's like contradictions, but the contradictions are also a a reason to hold or a reason to exit per se. So this is a very aggressive entry, but it's aligned with a lot of external factors, although there is still something going against me. So that's by nature contradictive. Whereas if I then wait for the full conservative entry, I may not be able to be conservative with actually executing. I would have to bet on the fact that this is my entry, my stop. And this inherently is a much different position or a much different method of entry than this. Whereas I'm waiting for not just the POI, but I'm waiting for the reaction in the POI. Whereas here, this is just the POI. Right? So is this risk technically better to take in hindsight? Yes, but in real time, maybe not, because then you're also fighting internal bullish momentum. So there's always going to be reasons as to why I shouldn't take a position or why I should take a position. But how much can you align and can you validate those alignments is really the key to the whole thing. Right? So very good trade. Any questions or concerns here? Right? Can we all admit that I was a bit lucky here? Right? Do you guys see why I'm saying that why I was a bit lucky here? Because technically this move should have taken me out. Based on not breaking lows consecutively and then the transition. But it was only till here that we have this failure that then leads to this break. That is now when you convert to a bearish sense, sorry. So it's now until this is broken that I can really justify that, because this structure break aligns with fully validating this POI, because you guys know that we need a reaction from that POI, right? So this POI, in order to get a true reaction from this POI, I would need the internal break, and that's the internal break based on this scale, right? Whereas if this POI, the reaction would be here, right? Proportionately. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, if this would have been my entry, then this would have been a perfect entry in terms of waiting for the medium term or the middle time frame to actually transition based on this. But it's because of this that then this is being validated, the equal highs are being validated, or the sweep of the equal highs are being validated, etc. Right? Hopefully that's not too confusing. Yeah, that would have stressed me out hard, bro. I don't understand how people stress over this stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I still feel some type of way. Like with the, I'll show you guys the last executions. I'm not gonna go over my loss of this week. I'll leave that for the case study. But that was this UJ sell, which was a follow up from last week's bias. But I'm not gonna cover that right now. But like, for example, these are my executions yesterday, and these are my last trades of the week. And when it comes to this, let me delete. This is so annoying. This would have actually worked out really well. But yeah, when it comes to this trade here, this was my initial bias Wednesday night, Tuesday night. Yeah, I think it was Tuesday night. coming into, or Wednesday night coming into Thursday, right for New York session. I mean, London session, sorry. And what I was anticipating is we have equal highs, but I was more so looking at a dual sweep. And when it comes to the dual sweep here, I was potentially looking for a full break here. I really wanted to see this full break, as we see here, break that so that we then have a sell to buy. And then that's now a confirmed dual sweep. And then I could justify going higher. And that would then aim for equal highs. But unfortunately, that just didn't occur. If you can see here. I believe it was right around here. Yeah, right around here. So we never broke structure and it just kept going lower. So once it kept going lower, I'm no longer interested in that sweep. But then it got a bit interesting. But before that, there was actually the same scenario on EU, right? Where we had a potential dual sweep. But I also wanted to see that break here. This break is very important because the internal is bearish. So if the internal is bearish, then I need an internal reversal BOS, which would then validate the dual sweep, which would then validate potential continuation of this momentum. Trump speech, I mean, sure. So that led us to the positions I was looking for. There's two EU, GU, relatively the same position, but completely different execution. Relatively the same in terms of they're both bearish and we're looking at continuations, but the approach to both scenarios was very different. Whereas with EU, right, the main reason why I'm looking for this position, can you guys guess what is like my main driver here? I'm going to delete this. Can you guys tell me what the biggest reason is why I'm looking for a bearish move here? LGC before? No. This is the number one reason why I'm even looking for a sell bias. The change in momentum, the change of character here. All right, we're going from very slow price action, fast price action. But the reason why I needed this internal transition, which is here, which is you can see the LGC here, right? Clear LGC. But I needed that LGC because there was a possibility that this low momentum was still potentially going to go higher. So that LGC, which is here, is validating the continuation of this SD. Whereas if this ended up not doing that, and let's say it broke structure, then I can now realign with this, because this scenario would be a failure of the SD. So I'm either playing with or against the SD, right? The SD is already present. So I have to either play with it or against it. And if that's just dependent on the reaction that's given to me. So based on the reaction that's present, right, I can trade the LGC. And then I'm just going off the buy to sell. And then I'm obviously going to go lower with my first partial here. And then I'm obviously wanting to go lower. But GU is a completely different scenario here, right? If we look at GU, I don't think did I not take the, okay, here we go. GU actually has a whole lot more confluence to it, right? From a bias POV, because we're already in play with a sweep here. So because we had this sweep here, right? Clearly there's still bullish momentum, but similar to EU, we had structural disruption. And then we also had an internal structural disruption there. But clearly from the external POV, right? Because of this sweep, we're obviously aiming for here. But based on where the entry is, we're seeing very low momentum, and then we're seeing high momentum. So therefore, I need this to fail somewhere for me to justify, right? Which is pretty much I'm justifying that by saying that these breaks of the wick are potentially OFD, but more importantly, right, they're showing me, right, in LGC technically based on sweep here and then the continuation there. But more importantly, this internal reaction is what's giving me the perimeter for the buy to sell, which is what's going to give me the entry to go lower, right? And the reason why I needed that, and I can't just take it, let's say here, is because of the high momentum present. So this high momentum present is withholding me from wanting to take the initial sell. Whereas if I wait for this entire transition, the actual reaction, then that confirms the POI is valid. I then have an internal buy to sell to play off of. So much more safer by this point. And that ended up, both of these ended up breaking me even. Excuse me. So this ended up hitting my initial partial and then just broke even right away. But from here, right, the cool thing is like this never really broke. So because this is still in play, like we're still technically bearish, which is what sucks because I mean this delivery wasn't the best, but with GU, it would have actually been a much better winner. But this would have actually given me much more time to potentially take more partials. Whereas here, right, this one broke me even as well, but this one is actually playing out, right? And so you guys see now, right, that this is why I needed this full alignment for the position, but we're still continuing the bias from here, from this being swept. Right, so GU had a lot more conviction. EU had a cleaner entry, maybe. To each their own, I guess. But this one had a much better bias for me. I just prefer to play with the sweep than rather than just trying to play a trend continuation. And there was no sweep, I believe. So if you were to ask me, would I have more conviction with an SD or a sweep? Definitely a sweep. 1538.9. What's 1538.9? I don't understand what you're. I mean, oh, you're talking about this? If you're talking about this, no. Actually, no. 38.9. What does SD stand for? Yeah, bro, you're gonna have to catch up, bro. I'm not teaching you an SD on Zoom. Higher. You talking about this? I mean, what do you mean higher? You said 1538.9. Oh, structural disruption. Um, Feel free to mark on my screen, bro. Tell me what you're talking about. $53.95. This? Bro, just mark on my screen. I don't know what you're talking about. Bro, that's 50. That's 56. Um, that's 1.56. Anyways, I mean, sure. If you're trying to play this, sure. Like, I'm not opposed to that. And like, there's a clear buy to sell. But this is like not my ideal time. Unless you're hopefully trading like the beginning of London. But either way, like, I'm not really I don't really trade London too much unless I see the actual transition. But like if we're looking at this here, like you can see that the Asian high is there, Asian low is there. I've had a lot of problems with selling the continuation of Asia. Right? And by that I mean the continuation of the Asia structure. Right? And I also don't really like the whole like sweep Asia low and then reversal. I don't like that either. I think that's a bit rudimentary. But I actually don't like to trade like a high into a low that was made during Asia. Like the continuation there. I have not had much success with that. This is actually like this works enough for it to be noticeable, but I don't think it works enough for me to want to trade it. And also, it's like not really the ideal time for me to trade. It's like 3 in the morning. But is that an LGC? Sure. Sure. I'm just curious where your target is. And yeah, I'd just be curious where your target is. Because really, like I said, the only reason why I even wanted to sell here was because we actually saw a change in momentum. And with the low momentum coming up and then the LGC there, then I can justify going lower. Whereas here, like this could still be interpreted as like a pullback. So even here, because this is like low momentum, you could say it's an LGC, but from a bigger picture, the momentum is still clearly bullish. So I just think there's more going against me here than here. Even though we had this wick, but it's like whatever. At the moment, I can't consider that because it's not present. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, this one. Do you guys understand this GU one? Why this entry makes a whole lot more sense than let's say here? Because if this wasn't high momentum, like that sell here makes a lot of sense. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the case studies. I'm not trying to stay on here too long. Also, please read the directions, guys. Like why are you posting this in this channel? Like I know reading directions is like boring and stuff, but it's like it's a one-time thing. Like, but let's go ahead and look into these trades. Um, Sweep? No, that's not a sweep. That's just an unsubstantial new high. I mean, sure you could say it's a sweep, but in terms of like a tradable sweep, no, not yet. Like you're kind of forcing it here. Like I see why you're assuming this, but you're forcing that for sure. See, like this is the ideal entry here. Seeing like low, high, sweep, and then you have SD, break of structure. You have a buy to sell, right? This is like A plus technically. But yeah, this one's aggressive. This one's conservative. Excuse me. And then there's even a better scenario here if you wanted to trade that. Because this is a low into a high. So you have the buy to sell. And then this is like an easy 1 to 4. 1 to 3 ish. Um, I don't like this one either. You're early. You need to see something break, bro. You need to see something break. If not, you're forcing it. Like, why should this not continue higher and like sweep before it goes lower? Like, it's an assumption to think that I won't do that. So you see, that's why it technically did. Like, so now it's like low into high, low into high. Okay, now that breaks. So like now you have potentially a reason to enter, right? It's once that breaks. And I would have liked for this to sweep as well. Because technically, I guess you could say it technically did sweep. So the only reason why I would potentially take this is if there's an engulfing there. Like if these are engulfings like on an M5 or something, then I think that would be very viable. But I think this is still aggressive, very aggressive, bro. Okay. So noting this, that's important. That's good. Okay, sure. Yes, that's relevant. This one worked out. I just don't. I wouldn't have taken this one particularly unless I was actually like looking at this. So if this is like an M5 engulfing, okay, yes, I'll consider it.
No, bro, that's
But
before.
I don't want to trade that buy here because you just swept this, right? Or is that the same? Is that the same line? Oh, you're here. No, no, no. You're here. You're here. Yeah, you're here. You're here. Okay. No, then yes. Okay, this is different. So yes, because this is a break, I would have just liked to see something sweep. So this is technically a break. That's technically solidified. That's correct. There is a POI here. It's correct. Like, there's nothing invalid here. I just don't like it. I would have probably liked to see something here better. But then the RR doesn't really make much sense to me. But I'm not opposed to this. If there's like an engulfing here, I think that this would be really good. Because this is M1, maybe there's like an M5. Because then that engulfing gives you the perimeter to just trade the whole thing. But yeah, not a bad trade. Not, I wouldn't say it's a bad trade. Let's see. There was an M5 engulfing. Okay, then definitely note that. Definitely note that. Okay, I'm not opposed. Let's see what the external's like. Okay, no, I like this. I like this. Why? Because we swept here and then we broke. Therefore, this is a failed attempt to go higher. And because this swept as well. So technically the point of this sweep is to reach this low, right? But because we tried to react before the low and then that broke, that justifies us to go lower. So then this becomes a much bigger play. So like let's say you were trading this here and like you trade something here, then seeing something like this is like a reason to hold longer. So I like this. I'm not opposed to this trade. Yeah, especially because it looks like there's potentially SD here, potentially SD, and then because there's an internal failure, I think that could give you at least a reaction. Okay, so it did give us somewhat of a reaction. So then from here, right, once you start seeing this, that means there's no follow through. Like I'm expecting this to give me the follow through. And if it doesn't give me the follow through, then we're either going to sweep and then from there, and then this is actually like a buy opportunity if this is to then break and this is to sweep. But if you're just kind of stuck here, like I would probably just close. I want my positions to, because if a transition is technically correct and this would be a failed bullish transition, then that means that we just failed to go up. So naturally we have to go down with some type of momentum. So if it starts to stall, then I would exit because that means something's wrong. This one I don't like. This is bullish. This is technically the target. Yes, there is potentially a, well, there's a lot going on here. So there's a sweep here or a CBOS here, but that's technically still bullish. That's why you still see the reaction to the upside. But then once you see this violent momentum to the downside, that does justify the bearish move, right? So the entry itself is justified. I just don't know if the overall environment is showing or is ideal for this to go lower, right? The only thing you kind of got going for yourself is the entry. And the fact that, yes, this is bullish, but it's stalling. So if it's stuck in a range, then I want to see the range get swept, right? So that I can then trade against it. Because like, there's technically a sweep here. We didn't sweep the overall high, but there's a technical sweep here. But let's say there was like a scenario here, then I still wouldn't want to trade this because we didn't sweep this high, because we're still technically bullish. But we haven't broken, we technically solidified this. We solidified this, but we failed to break we broke an internal high. We didn't break the external high, but we've also failed to break the low. So you're kind of stuck in the range. So because you're stuck in the range, then I don't really want to lean towards the side yet. So the entry is technically fine. I just don't think the environment is the best yet. And that looks like an engulfing. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of fighting a lot here. You're fighting this, right? So yes, this could be considered a sweep, but the reaction is clearly not the best. And then there's clearly a transition back to bullish. And we haven't swept the high. So I would more so expect this to sweep this high. And then if something happens here, then I can justify the bearish move. Yeah, like especially based on this, like if this is to sweep and then give a transition, then I can now align it with this, and then I can aim for a pretty high risk to reward. See, so is there any highs being swept here? No. Yeah, so if there's no highs being swept, I just can't justify it here. Like even if this internal high was to be swept and then give me a move, then I can justify it. But it's until I get some type of sweep. Like I would much rather pass on the move than not follow my rules. I don't know, maybe S&P swept that and you got like divergence or something. On FXCM, they sweep. Oh, so it swept on FXCM? Interesting. Yeah, if this would have swept, then this is a very good trade. Maybe even this could be justified. This, but then there's not really a POI anywhere here. But yeah, very good trade. It's just not something I could have taken. Cool. So do we have any more questions, guys? Cause I'm a little tired today and I'm not trying to be on here for too long. But do you have any more questions, concerns, anything? Yeah, quick one today, guys. I'm pretty tired. Unless you guys have some questions. I guess we can look at stuff though, real quick. Cause this one. My friend has been buying this and I'm like, brother, stop. Like, chill. I'm gonna text him after this call actually. Be like, come again? This one, do you guys remember we talked about this one last week or 2 weeks ago, I think. We were like around here. I think it's an 8 hour. Yeah, 8 hour. Yeah, this give me these lows, bro. Give me these lows. I'm waiting for this. Like, take these lows out. It's down what, 15%? Yeah. This one's gonna keep going lower for sure. DXY, I'm still bullish. I mean, do you guys understand the case that we built here and why we've been bullish on here? We've been bullish on this since probably around like here, like 100% bullish here, but we've obviously been looking for the accumulation for a while.
Yeah, man, this is really cool. Like, this is probably my best prediction like ever, I think. Besides like COVID back in 2020. Like, if you guys remember that. Like, I almost got that to the T. Like, I think I bought like around here. Wait, where was it? I think I bought like around here, and this is like we held like a super big swing. But this is probably one of my best predictions. Like, I'm seeing this. Give me this over the next like year. Give me that. Why? Accumulation, but you also get positive swap. Unless like I think unless rates change or something like that. Yeah, big accumulation, bro. We've been looking at this for a while, so yeah, and I mean it's cool to see stuff align, like the accumulation lining up, but then GU sweeping a high, even though they don't 100% correlate, like they can align. I think that's my new favorite word of the year. That's gonna be our word of the year. And I'm glad you guys can see this live too. Like, but yeah, this could really start to pop off soon. So expect some moves. I don't see this coming back down here though. Not anymore. Structure's in place. Things are aligning, bro. Everything's kind of lining up. This one's annoying though. It sucks. Like once this one got invalidated, I've kind of not even touched it. Like UCAD tends to kind of like drag these moves. It did it before. I mean, it goes like around here. Like it just drags. It drags. Like no momentum, just drags like straight up. Like this is definitely gonna be taken out. Interesting. This was interesting. This one's probably gonna keep going higher. I want to see what happens after this is swept. But yeah, pretty good callouts here. I mean, we've been bearish on this for a while, so I'm expecting this to hopefully even take out this low. That's kind of my target. All right, if you guys want a prediction, give me this. Give me that. That'd be cool. Makes sense, maybe. The cool thing is that's kind of a target. So like, I don't really trade cryptos. I don't really want to trade it like on a CFD POV. But yeah, man, this is actually a decent sweep here as well. But yeah, I need this to keep going down. But yeah, guys, that'll probably wrap up today. Unless you guys have some questions. Definitely stay tuned for that first workshop. And we'll go from there.